And now, as promised, let's bring in one of my good friends, awesome podcaster, one of the smartest people in the world. And by the way, has a lot to say about a very important recent interview. My good friend, Megyn Kelly. Megyn, thank you for joining the Bolling with Favre podcast.
Hi, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So as we speak right now, news is breaking about this big interview. The Queen put out a statement. We'll get to that in just a second. But I just read coming across the wire, did I read Piers Morgan is now leaving Good Morning Britain?
Yes, I can't believe it. I'm shocked. I have to say I'm stunned because he's been such an important part of that morning show for years. I mean, I go on Good Morning Britain all the time and the discussions are always fiery and he's always skating the line. And the statement doesn't make clear whose decision this was. He left, he stormed off the set this morning in an interview he was having with a man who I think is their weathercaster, who was talking about the Markle interview.
What can we do this? We have that. We have the sound. Rob, will you play that?
And I understand that you've got a personal relationship with Meghan Markle, or had one, and she cut you off. Has she said anything about you since she cut you off? I don't think she has, but yet you continue to trash her.
Okay, I'm done with this.
No.
Sorry, no. Sorry.
So, do you know what? That's pathetic.
You can trash me, maybe not my.
No.
See you later.
I'm being.
Sorry, can't do this.
This is absolutely diabolical behaviour.
And yeah, I watched that clip, Megyn, and it did seem like that guy, whoever he was, I don't know who he was, but
I just read that he was the weather guy. I actually don't know if he is.
Yeah, but it was more about he was critiquing Piers Morgan rather than the interview. I mean, who would sit there and listen to that on national television?
Well, so I watched the exchange that those two had, which I believe that the two clips were cut up. So but I believe the order was this 14-minute clip came first and then came the 2-minute walk-off. And Piers was trying to make the point that Meghan Markle didn't tell the truth when she said baby Archie wasn't going to be a prince because she thought of his skin color. And Piers was saying that's not true, that baby Archie was never going to be a prince. And that was understood about Harry's children before he ever even met Meghan Markle, because where he is in the birth order and royal rules. But baby Archie will become a prince if Harry and Meghan want him to when Charles becomes king. It's, the royal rules. So he's trying to say these are the facts. And the other guy was like, but that was her lived experience, right? And Piers is getting aggravated, like, but these are the facts. She can't have lived experience about the royal rules that have been in place for 100 years, So that's what they were clashing about. But I think what got him in trouble, according to what I'm reading, is there were some 40,000 complaints yesterday about he basically called BS on Meghan Markle as a whole, like everything she said. And people thought that included her claims that she was suicidal. And Piers clarified on the air this morning saying, it wasn't that. I don't believe, that he did say he didn't believe that she reported it to the, royal family or whoever it is she said she reported it to. So there was some skirmish about what he said. And I don't know whether he left of his own volition or they pushed him out, but it's stunning to me.
Yeah, this is stunning. One of those big moves. But and we just kind of were lucky to have Megyn Kelly in the seat on Tuesday after this big interview, because you're very jazzed. You're very fired up about that interview. I've been watching your tweets. Can I play a soundbite that just blew me away when I heard it? And I'd like you to react, because I think you've been on this one too. Rob, give me Trapped, if you don't mind.
Do you think you would have left or ever stepped back were it not for Megyn?
No, the answer to your question is no.
You would not have.
I wouldn't have been able to, because I myself was trapped as well. I didn't see a way out.
She felt trapped. You were trapped?
Yeah, I didn't see a way out.
But you'd had this life your whole life. This has been your life your whole life.
Yeah, but I was trapped, but I didn't know I was trapped.
Please explain how you, Prince Harry, raised in a palace, in a life of privilege, literally a prince, how you were trapped.
Trapped within the system, like the rest of my family are. My father and my brother, they are trapped. They don't get to leave. And I have huge compassion for that.
So Megyn, Prince Harry, trapped. Your thoughts?
That clip, her clips talking about how hard it was to go on the royal tours, how she had to smile all the time, and she did it, but it was just grueling. I mean, keep in mind the year we've had. the number, let's just take the frontline workers, the doctors and the nurses and the healthcare workers in the hospitals trying to save lives at every turn, working 24-hour shifts, surrounded by dead bodies in their country and ours. To go out there and not have any perspective on what real suffering looks like was really out of touch. I mean, it was, to be charitable to these two, grossly out of touch. Like, and there wasn't even a shout out to the year we've had, to the I mean, the lives lost in both of our countries, right? It was just the royal tours were grueling, and it was so hard for me, and the media was very nasty. And then with him, he was trapped. I'm sure it's hard to leave the royal family, although many people have done it. But like every single expense in that guy's life has been paid for by the British taxpayers. He's never paid for one thing of his own. They've lauded love and affection on him since before birth. And did he sound grateful to you? Was there even a nod to the British populace by saying, I love them, I'm so grateful for all they've given me and the life that they've helped afford me. Just turns out I'm not a right fit for this job. Nothing. It was just, poor me.
The trapped part that I didn't get was because I remember before Megyn seeing a lot of video of Harry in clubs in Las Vegas, drinking and partying all over the place. I'm thinking, if you got to be trapped, I mean, it's not a bad way to be trapped for the rest of your life.
Honestly, and like to her point about how difficult the royal tours were, Eric, do you have any doubt that she was on the royal tours with silver tray service provided for her by dozens of royal staffers, that she flew private on her way there, that her every whim and need was taken care of before and after the fact? So the difficulty was it required some energy, and she had to smile a lot. Like, I'm sorry. And the media is a whole different story. We can get into that level of complaints, and the allegations that the royal family didn't take her serious depression seriously is its own very dark and wrong lane. If that's true, that's like seriously bad. But for the most part, what she was complaining about when it came to royal life was all foreseeable stuff. She wasn't going to be able to control her own media. She wasn't going to be able to live her life exactly as she wanted. And sometimes she was going to have to do the mundane work that comes with being a royal, which is not all rainbows and unicorns. A lot of times going to the community center and shaking hands and smiling.
You know, Brett, do you want to weigh in on any of this? Because I'm thinking of people who are, I don't know, treated. Look, we come from an age where when you're growing up playing sports, for example, you're lucky. We helped push start our first bus in minor league baseball. I mean, it was when an old school bus and didn't have a starter. We had to push start the bus. I mean, things have changed. Meghan Markle and Harry trapped.
Kids are spoiled, and they're, we're partly to blame, but mostly to blame for it, wanting to provide everything that we didn't have for our kids. And there's a really a lack of respect from the younger generation out there today to the older generation. And again, we're a big part of that reason. But I'm sitting here listening to Trapped, and I saw a little bit of the interview. Trapped as being on a commercial flight with, two knuckleheads sitting beside you that you don't know, and you're going to China or wherever, and that's Trapped. I mean, you're flying in private planes, and I've been fortunate enough to make money, and I don't go commercial as much as I can, and I'm extremely thankful and blessed. It sure beats the alternative, but you're right. I watched what little bit I watched. Megyn, there was no, it was spoiled is the best I can come up with.
Rob, can we jump to second soundbite? And I know this is the one that's made the rounds, but I think, Megyn, there's a backup, there's a follow-up to the soundbite. I want to ask you about Oprah. Go ahead, Satu. How about Archie's color? Let's talk.
And also concerns and conversations about how dark his skin might be when he's born.
What?
And
who is having that conversation with you? What?
So,
there is a conversation. Hold up.
There's
Stop
several
right now.
There's several conversations.
There's a
about
conversation with you,
with Harry.
about how dark your baby is going to be?
Potentially, and what that would mean or look like.
Ooh. And you're not going to tell me who had the conversation?
I think that would be very damaging to them.
Okay.
And Megyn, I
Oh.
think you had said there's a fail there on Oprah's part by not following up aggressively.
Yeah. And now, I mean, it's so funny, Eric, because of course you criticize Oprah and you get a bunch of, you know what slung at you. I don't care. I've been very laudatory about Oprah my entire career, right? I've talked about my love for Oprah. It's waned in the past few years, I'll be honest. But that doesn't mean she's perfect. And what I could have used in that interview were some follow-ups, like not just on that question, but on that question too. She should have said, you know, did you give any thought to casting this aspersion without being willing to name names? Because now you've impugned the entire royal family.
Mm-hmm.
Or even just, was it the Queen? Was it Prince Philip, who's 99 years old and in a hospital right now? Will you at least rule them out? And Oprah had to come on the next day on CBS This Morning and say, okay, they contacted me and they want to say it's not the Queen and Prince Philip. So her follow-up there would have been beneficial even to them. And even when Harry claimed that the things turned for Megyn within the royal family after the Australia tour, because he was implying she was such a dynamo and so amazing that jealousy took over within the royal family. Well, who? Who's jealous? What do you base that on? What did they say? How did it change? What specifically, right? Like, let's get into it. The facts, I mean, I practiced law for 10 years. The facts are what tell the story. Show, don't tell. Tell me the evidence behind that claim so I can make up my own mind on whether your sweeping conclusion is true or it's not.
So I've watched you work, and I remember specifically there was a show that you were doing, and to ask that tough follow-up question or to hold someone accountable on the spot is real journalism. And the reason why I'll never forget, Lou Dobbs, I think, was on with you, and he said something, and you stood him up and said, "Explain yourself, sir." And he had a hard time doing it. Why didn't Oprah at that moment realize how big of a news? I mean, that created not ripples, but a tsunami around the world, that the someone within the confines of Parliament or within the confines of the crown is racist. And why wasn't there a follow-up? Did Oprah fail in her interview?
Well, look, this is a very chummy interview. They're neighbors. They've become friends since Megyn, who only met Oprah once, invited Oprah to the royal wedding. So Meghan Markle wanted this interview for a long time, just as badly as Oprah did. Meghan Markle has wanted to be a star for a long, long time. And now she is. So this is her moment that she dreamed of having with Oprah. And they're friends. And Oprah, while she started off as a journalist in Baltimore and actually earned, her sort of credentials out on the streets of Baltimore doing real reporting, moved into the talk show business and got to a place where what she did for a living looked very different than what a hard news reporter does. And that's where she's been ever since. I mean, Oprah, she did the sort of response to that alleged documentary about Michael Jackson on HBO. Remember that thing? Mm-hmm. Where they put on those two guys? And Oprah came on and it was just like a cleanup in aisle 7 where it was like, was he as bad as we thought? And she had the two guys. No tough questions, Eric. I mean, I spent 5 minutes looking into those two guys and they have so many red flags on their stories. I'm not saying that they weren't telling the truth. I'm saying as a journalist, you'd have to ask about them. You would have to. One of the guys was under oath and ordered by a court to turn over all of his book materials that he allegedly written about Michael Jackson. And he didn't. He lied that he didn't have it. Did she ask about that? No. Well, the viewer could have used that information. It's just Oprah has a different approach and people need to understand when they watch her, this is a talk show host who's in a different game than a hard-hitting news reporter would be. And it's certainly one of the reasons they chose her.
Before we move on, do you want to grade Oprah's performance?
I'll give her a B+ because Oprah has a nice style and conversational and warm and makes you feel like everything is happening dynamically and organically. And it's not. I mean, people who, with all due respect to Oprah, the reason that was such a great interview is because they were willing to talk. Those two were willing to talk. And if you don't think that there was a pre-interview with Oprah's staff where Oprah knew all that stuff that was coming, you're nuts. That's how it works. She knew all the stuff that Megyn was going to say, and she's masterful at pulling it out in a way that seems natural. But we needed more journalism in moments there, and we didn't get it.
Yeah. Brett, your thoughts? You want to weigh in here?
I just wonder your thoughts, Megyn. Do you think one of the reasons maybe they left it kind of in the air is maybe it's not true?
I believed that claim. I didn't think that was untrue listening to it. She said a bunch of stuff that I didn't believe. I don't believe she didn't Google Harry when she was dating him. I don't believe she thought meeting the Queen was going to be the same as meeting some random LA celebrity. Bull, right? Like that stuff didn't make any sense to me. But I believed this claim because they were both telling it. And it's so extraordinary. I mean, she'd have to be like, have a screw loose to be making this up. And so but I disagree. I think they should have had a long talk with each other about the consequences of releasing this story without the name, because now they've impugned everybody within the royal family. What they're basically saying, especially now having ruled out Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip, is that it was Charles or it was William. So one of the next two future kings of England is a raging racist. That's what they're saying. And you can't drop that bomb without attaching it to a name. You just, that's a really heavy burden to lay on the remaining two guys.
Now, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but is there, if it's true, and the pre-interview said, someone said they're going to drop this bomb, and Oprah wisely and Harpo Productions wisely didn't drop it prior to the actual interview. They saved it for the interview, which is brilliant. They got 17.5 million viewers, et cetera. Is it a setup for part two?
I mean, I think Megyn and Harry will look so bad if they did part two that they can't, and they're smart enough to realize they won't, that they shouldn't. This is supposed to be their swan song, right? This is supposed to be, we want privacy now. We're going to sort of do our thing as private citizens, and this is just our chance to clear the air. But I mean, no sooner did they do it than they release new pictures of themselves, right? Like with the baby, like, yeah. Okay, I'm not sure how somebody who wants privacy does a $100 million deal with Netflix and a $50 million deal with Spotify for podcasts and shows. Like, it doesn't seem like living the private life, but you do you.
They want to be Hollywood stars. It strikes me as that is the goal. They stay at Tyler Perry's 25 million, 30, whatever $1 million mansion. They live down the block from Oprah. They give her a massively high profile. They drop a bomb in the Queen's lap, so to speak. And they're signing deals left and right. In the meantime, Brett, they're complaining about how tough it was, and Megyn's point, to smile when she had to shake someone's hand. Do you know how mind-numbing it is for her to have to do that?
I mean, it's painful. I'm at a loss for words.
Well, can I ask you something? Let me ask you something, guys. Prince Harry, one of his complaints was that when they moved to Canada, they got and left the royal family, they got cut off from the money, which meant their security wasn't going to be paid for by the Queen anymore because they weren't doing the Queen's business anymore. And he actually wanted us to feel sorry for him, that he only now, at that point, prior to his big deals, had his mother's inheritance to rely upon, which according to reports is any place between $15 and $25 million. And how is a man who's never had to pay for a single thing of his own in his entire life, because the British taxpayers who are out there digging ditches in the streets paid for all of his needs till from 0 to 36, how is a man supposed to pay for a security team with $15 to $25 million? I was like, this is the most out of touch couple I've ever heard of in my life.
No, you're absolutely right. One of my questions was going to be, which now you've answered it. Did the royal family still provide protection for it? Well, I got that answer.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I know you guys are both self-made. Eric was just on my show. We talked about how he grew up a relatively poor kid in Chicago and was embarrassed that he couldn't get the sneakers he wanted. To hear this guy, who, I mean, literally grew up with a silver spoon in his mouth,
True.
Talk about how he couldn't possibly pay for the security for his own child because Queen Elizabeth won't pay for it. I don't know why everyone's not recoiling in shock at that. Why is the story any other than that?
Why aren't they? Why is America and the rest of the world going, oh, poor Megyn, oh, poor Harry, how awful it must have been for them to have to deal with that behind the scenes. I mean, for God's sake, there are people, as you pointed out earlier in this interview, we just lost 500,000 people in America to COVID. People are out of work. Restaurant workers they're dying. They can't afford to live. And these tone deaf, arrogant SOB snobs are worried about how much security they're going to get. Believe me, they're going to have security wherever they go,
Well,
right?
and can I say something else? The media is so hypocritical as usual. Like they're indignant that any attacks would be launched based on race by the press over in Britain. And a few were, that's true. A few newspapers had really racist things about Megyn. But the vast majority were very complimentary. They were in love with her over there. And I went over and covered the royal wedding, and I can speak to that firsthand. But I mean, that same press will turn around and call Larry Elder Uncle Tom, or say that Dan Crenshaw, not Dan Crenshaw, Daniel Cameron, the Black Attorney General in the state of
Kentucky,
thank you, who didn't go after the Breonna Taylor cops, the cops who killed Breonna Taylor. They'll say he's skin folk, but not kin folk. Those racial attacks, those are just fine. But the ones that were launched against Meghan Markle have everybody over here in an uproar, as they should be in an uproar, but it should be universal. And they shouldn't be allowed to throw those kind of barbs at conservative people of color just because their views don't line up with the press's politically.
If there wasn't double standards in media, Megyn, there'd be no standards at all. All right, we're gonna have to leave it there, my friends. Always great to have Megyn Kelly on. Megyn's always great to talk to you.
Good luck with everything. It's great to see you guys together.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.